But the big thing is that Port Adelaide ticked the box. They needed the 4 points. They got the 4 points. 16-24, 120 to 10-10-70.
Rosie, that's a beautiful ball from Rosie. Goodness gracious me, what about that as they stand and applaud their young superstar captain.
On that occasion, a little toe poke. It could be Rosie or it could be HORNE-FRANCIS. Yeah. If it's not Butters and not Rosie, it's going to be HORNE-FRANCIS. The young man lives for these moments.
Going to take his time. Don't rush it.
His heart rate doesn't look above 100. He knows what he's doing. He was born to be in this situation. And the power in front.
To the Collingwood side that have just bounced Port Adelaide back to Adelaide with their heads hung low.
First time since 2007, Port Adelaide have won at this ground. Outstanding.
He's on now, so just watch if it is the Liam Shields tag. And straight away into the action. Wouldn't this be some sort of start? He's been on the ground for 10 seconds. Thank you very much. How good is that?
He's a fair player there, mate.
Siren's going to sound. Just one win here in 11 years for Carlton. And they have knocked off Port Adelaide by 36 points.
No one, offhand, D'Ambrosio taps it backwards. They're under pressure. Ball comes out. He kicked it! He kicked it! He kicked it! It's a miracle! He's stolen it! I've never seen anything like it in your life! Can you believe what we've just seen? Billy Jones has won it! They've snatched victory from the jaws of defeat!
Hello and welcome to the Creedcast. This is your mid-year review. We're doing a little special episode since we've got time and don't need to preview anything for the next week. I'm just going to look back on the year that's been so far for the next 40 or so minutes in your ears. As always, my name is Dave and thank you for listening. We appreciate you giving us your time every week to listen to us over the plethora of other podcasts that are out there. Your Port Adelaide Footy Club, after 12 rounds this year, is sitting with an 8-4 win-loss draw record. There's been a few draws in the AFL this year, but we haven't been a part of any of them and a part of all that chatter. 32 points in the season, sitting in fourth on the ladder after the last round of matches, and obviously with the bye coming up, that position could move, but our win-loss record won't change, and that'll just be what it is for the next week or so. A percentage of 111.71, not incredible, but not bad either. It's just kind of, it's really, percentages is always indicative of where you're at, obviously. And it's a very dense pack of teams, obviously, with Geelong on the same amount of points as us, just above us on the ladder, Carlton just below us, who have just beaten us, and then Freo, GWS, Gold Coast, all the way down to Melbourne in 10th, are just a game behind us on points. And then Western Bulldogs in 11th is just 2 games behind us, which just shows just how tight the ladder is. With Sydney sitting on top, with the only team that's been able to just make a little bit of a break on the season. So Jamie's with me as always. Before we get into just touching on the games that have been so far, it's been a roller coaster of a start, as I guess any Port fan going into this year might have expected. But as it's unsurprising but surprising at the same time, the results and everything.
Hello, hey everyone. Hello, Dave. Yes, it has been a roller coaster. I think, yeah, we feel like that because we've just had a disheartening loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we nor anyone else, maybe except for Essendon and obviously Sydney, have really put a good run of games together. There's been a lot of 2, 3, maybe even 4 win streaks before someone inevitably faces their loss, and that's reflected in the ladder. So yeah, pulling it back to Port Adelaide, it has been a bit of a roller coaster. But thankfully, a lot more wins than losses at this point in the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll get into talking about some of those results and some of the close ones that could have gone either way. But yeah, as you touched on the streaks, I mean, I'm just looking at, because I screenshotted the ladder to put into my little notes packet that I have in front of me that I do on the podcast, and just looking at the run of red dots that Geelong had after they won 7 in a row to start the season, and they were lost 4 in a row. So, we always talk about, our team, and, it's always, you feel like you're in your own bubble, and everything that is bad, that is ever bad, that is ever going to happen in the world of football is always happening to your team. But I'm sure Geelong fans have been tearing their hair out after that start to the season.
Sack Chris Scott.
Yeah. But we are talking about our Port Adelaide Footy Club, and we'll start off with just looking at the first 4 rounds of the season. And I'll just rattle off the results quickly here before we get into it. Round 1, obviously, we won with an interesting scoreline of 16 goals, 24-120 to 10-10-70 over West Coast. Dixon kicked 3, Soldo 2, Rosie 2, HORNE-FRANCIS 2, Farrell 2, Drew 2. A lot of multiple goal scorers there, and obviously the Rosie and Butters were in our best, HORNE-FRANCIS as well. Dixon, Soldo had a great debut, and Bergman and Houston. Round 2, we won by 50 points at the MCG after an indifferent start that saw us down at halftime, and in a close one at 3/4 time, we ran out winners by 50 points over. 30 points. I'm going 50 points. I'm thinking of the first game.
30 points.
Yeah, I was still looking at the 50-point note I had for the West Coast team, but 30 points, which was a good win against the Richmond side that, while they've fallen away a little bit at times this year, they were still reasonably fit at that point. It was Marshall. Marshall had 4 goals, Finlayson 3, Burne-Jones 3 in one part of his good start to the year. Round 3 saw us go down in a close one at Adelaide Oval against Melbourne, who were incredibly accurate with their 15 goals, 696 to our 13 goals, 1189, a little bit profligate in front of goal. One of the games that really had X score tearing our hair out. As we've talked about at times on this podcast this year, Rioli had 2, Burne-Jones 2, Finlayson 2, and Willem Drew with one of his best games of the year, really, was our best on ground, I think. Round 4, to finish out our first block of games here that we'll chat about, was an incredible gathering at Adelaide Oval as we ran out in probably, as still, I would say, our best win of the year. 69 points, 17-9, really incredibly accurate and dominant over just 6 goals, 6-42 to Essendon, who have since proved to be one of the better teams in the competition. Rosie had 3 in probably one of his best games ever for the club, I would say. Willie Rioli with 3, Finlayson 3, Burne-Jones 3. Georgiades had 2, which was that. I think that might have been his first game back too, I reckon. Don't quote me on that. Probably should have looked.
You might be right.
Yeah. So, Rosie again, class, just absolute class. It was the game that it was Rosie, HORNE-FRANCIS and Butters show, and Finlayson and a lot of great players. A lot of real good players in that game. That was our first 4 rounds. We finished off 3-1 after that block of games for the first month of the season. Obviously, the Melbourne game was a disappointment, but also we had a lot of talk after that game about how we probably were the better side, all that stuff, statistical dominance and all that stuff. So when you finish off that first month at 3-1 with that one loss being to Melbourne, who at the time we were thinking premiership fancy, maybe tapering off of that a little bit now, but we're just talking about it at that time. I was feeling pretty reasonable after that Essendon game, as it would be difficult not to, even after the Melbourne game the week before. 3-1 after that first month, I was pretty cock-a-hoop about where we were at.
Yeah, I think that's probably where we would have thought we'd be pre-season, if not 4-0. I remember that Melbourne game coming out of the pre-season shows was like, 50-50.
But it's at home.
Dropped off a little bit since then. Essendon have gone up, Melbourne have gone down a little bit, funnily enough. But I vividly remember after the Essendon game, that review was one of the first tangent-laden reviews that we did, just talking about how good our midfield is and, can anything ever go wrong ever again? And absolutely feeling pretty fucking good about how the season was shaping up to that point in time. Obviously, we weren't getting ahead of ourselves because it was still the first month of football. And like you said, against Richmond, we probably did play one of their stronger teams for the season. Unfortunately, they've been absolutely hit, with the injury stick repeatedly since then.
Got to remember,
Zerk-thatcher again. I was
just going to say 2 weeks after that Richmond win we had, they beat Sydney for their one loss of the year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think it was 2 weeks after, but it was, or maybe
it's
even
been
a week after.
87 years. That's how long ago it feels since then. And I remember, like I was going to say, was that Zerk-thatcher's first month as a new recruit was amazing. I think of some of the forwards that we reviewed that he'd kept to a low number up to that point. So, I remember feeling quite satisfied, albeit that Melbourne game we thought was one that got away. And looking at it in various degrees, it probably did. But it is what it is right now. And it doesn't, although it fit one particular narrative in reflection when looking at the whole season and the whole competition, it's just, another loss that a top 8 hopeful took, unfortunately. Unfortunately being at home too, which I think added another layer.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it's, I guess it adds to the cynics out there, and to be fair, like I'll always say, the ones that discuss it maturely about our record under lights and stuff like that. But there is the caveat that often when you're under lights against good teams is how it usually works.
Exactly.
But overall, after the first month of the season, if I was looking back and just grading it on that block, I'd go you'd go a solid A. Like A plus would be you'd go, if you beat Melbourne, then you go A plus. But I think I think I think
A is appropriate.
3 and 1. If you'd been smashed by Melbourne and it had looked really worrisome, but the fact that we did play pretty well and just were our own worst enemies in that game, you go, that's winnable. So I'd still give it a solid A for that first month of the season, which was exactly where you hope to be. I mean, obviously, you hope for A plus every time, but I got a college degree. I knew an A plus wasn't possible every time. Might have been if I drank slightly less beer in college, but that's neither here nor there.
And what's the saying? C's get degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And I did have a better average than C, that's for sure. So even in Spanish classes.
C's not going to cut it in this regard.
Yeah, exactly.
Useless phrase that I just.
Yeah, no, it's a popular one, particularly when you're in the more lower level classes that you just need for your degree, like those ones that are just the requirements. Anyway, we might get to some C grades later on. But rounds 5 through 8 started a run of deciding that we're going to be in squeaky bum time for the entire game, every game apparently. Round 5, we had a close one against Freo at Adelaide Oval that was a battle of styles really, and Freo largely had the game in their hands until it wasn't. We win by 3 points, 9-12, 66 to 9-9, 63. Dixon with one. I think that was the Dwayneism game. I think
that was a
Dwayneism game. Yeah,
absolutely.
Charlie,
King I want to watch Charles to make myself feel good.
Yeah, just get that endorphin rush at the end there.
Shaken, not stirred.
He's chasing him down like treacle. But it was Dixon, one of those games that started a little bit of the worry about him, but he clearly still was moving well at that time. He kicked 2 and popped up for the important goals in what was a very low scoring game. Georgiades kicked 2. Rosie was one of our best on the day again, along with Dan Houston, Butters, and Kane Farrell had a pretty good one. And Zerk-thatcher popped up in the best players as well. The next week was probably one of the first major concern games for the year. After a real hot start, and at some point in the second quarter, you started thinking, I need to book some tickets to the MCG in September. Collingwood decided they had put some stop to that chat with and ended up running out 17 goals, 21 to 12 goals, 9 winners. It was when they're outscoring you in just on points or just evening up on, so it was plus 17 on the goal scoring opportunities for Collingwood. It was a rough loss, that one. Georgiades did kick 3 in that one. Pau Pepper was back and kicked a couple, but it was a game that had started so beautifully that ended so horribly. A true game of, 2 halves, 1.5 quarters and 2.5 quarters, the way it went. The next week we bounced back in a game against St Kilda again. A squeaky bum time late, 11 goals 16 to 11 goals 6. Another game that had everyone tweeting at Jay Schultz. Dixon kicked 4 in that one. Rioli with a couple, and Willem Drew again had one of his better games of the year, along with Butters and Wines. Wines having one of his good ones, and Jace Burgoyne really starting to show the reason that he should not be dropped. He had a pretty good game in that one as well. And to round out that second month, we had to round out the second month of the year this way, but we went down with a score of 5 goals 18 to 12 goals 6. Again, a game that we points alone matched Adelaide's total output on goal scoring, and just one of the worst nights of my life. Along with every other showdown loss. So there's been a few. We really didn't have much to write home about on this day. HORNE-FRANCIS was one of our lone stars. Ollie Wines went about it pretty well, but overall it was a day that it was a tough one to find our goal of the week nominees, and I think HORNE-FRANCIS got it was one that was there to be won, but we just kicked ourselves out of it, and the Crows again showed some of our issues. So that second month was an interesting one when you block that, when you compartmentalize it by blocking it out in months, and you look at the way we started our first month with 3 wins by at least 5 goals, and our second month of the year obviously was 2 losses, 2 pretty hefty losses to probably what you'd call our traditional rivals, both home and interstate, and then our two wins were by combined 13 points. It's chalk and cheese for the first month of the season. How were you feeling at that point?
Oh, this was real, frustration.
Mm-hmm.
This is, worrisome, inconsistent. Didn't know what to make of Fremantle at the time, although we knew that they were playing a defensive style, similar with St Kilda, but would have wanted a larger victory. I remember reviewing that game, and it was all heavy point scoring, behind scoring, that is, in the first quarter of that game. And one goal late in that first quarter against St Kilda. That was a Rosie goal. Geez, we miss him. Remember, the first quarter and a half against Collingwood, just punching air like his head, thinking that nothing could ever go wrong in life. And then it did on that day.
We didn't even have to wait until next week. It's just it happened that day.
Yeah. Life just slaps you in the face sometimes. And that was definitely a slap in the face. And came back down to earth after the high of the Essendon win. That was the one that, put us back on our ass, really. And then, 2 weeks later, in the showdown, very unsurprising and predictable way to lose a showdown, which has not, doesn't look kindly upon us, considering how, the next block of games turned out, and how Adelaide's next block of games turned out after that as well. It just didn't do ourselves any favor. And if I'm putting a grade on it, I'm sure you've got one written down. I'd probably say that's probably more in the realm of C. Versus expectation.
I got C minus again. It as you were saying, like C's get degrees, and a C minus is the base point that you can possibly accept for your grade point average in college in America, and that's what I give that. It's and you could make a case for going down to D. I'd say at least you get the wins. You find a way to win against Freo. St Kilda, you battle away despite almost trying to kick yourself out of it in that first quarter. But the showdown loss is inexcusable. 5 goals 18 is just fucking horrible. And it's not, we made the point at the time, and it's been a thing we've talked about at times this year. We can touch on it briefly now. The people have talked a lot about our goal kicking, and the showdown was again a game that while we need to take our opportunities when they come, it was one of those games. It was just like we weren't just giving ourselves good opportunity on goal, and that's a theme that probably carries through to which we'll talk about in the last block of games as we get to them in a moment. But it's just some of those themes that are persisting right to this point that we're recording this review really started popping up in that second month of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge frustration levels where, Jay Schultz got a good workout, like you said, in your wrap-up of those blocks. Jesus. And just going back on the game we just reviewed against Carlton, that was another worry sign was, we tended to take some shots from the pockets, and it needs to change. It needs to change.
No, it's structure and the opportunities you're giving yourself, because you need to give yourself good goal scoring opportunities and give yourself those opportunities at a regular clip to win games of football. That's the way it works. However, whatever way you make those opportunities happen, that's the beauty of footy and the teams that, the different ways that teams play to give themselves those opportunities. But the true and hard, fast rules of winning games of football and winning premierships is you need to have regular good goal scoring opportunities. That's just, it's one of those simple facts about footy.
It definitely helps. It helps a great deal.
Yeah. Be a whole lot cooler if you did. But we start our last month of the season, thus far, with just the most incredible result you could imagine after that horrific showdown result by going down to Geelong and winning. Well, it ended up being a close game, 15 goals, 11, 101 to 14, 11, 95. But it was 8 goals, 2 to 3 at quarter time and 12 goals, 5 to 5-6 at halftime. And even at three-quarter time, it was 14 goals, 8 to 11 goals, 8. But we were 30 points up until a couple of minutes to go. And just a little bit of, again, at the time when we reviewed it, I talked about the Willie Rioli free kick saga there at the end. And then they got a quick one out of stoppage at the end to make it really tight. But we held on and won for the first time in Geelong since 2007 in an incredible result. Willie Rioli kicked 4. Georgiades kicked a couple. Farrell and Burne-Jones popped up with a couple as well. Butters had a really great game. HORNE-FRANCIS again, who will feature a lot as the season goes on, was one of our best. And Ollie Wines really turning back the clock in that one as well. And as I said, Willie Rioli, really just an incredible game, that one.
Absolutely
deserves its flowers for just the performance it was. And even though it ended up close, it was, you take a win any way you can get it down there. And it seems we played them out of form for a couple of weeks there as well. They had lost coming into that one, but they were really started to struggle after that one for a couple of weeks there. But then the week after we come out, that's the thing when if you could even compartmentalize these two games within themselves. So we went down to Geelong and played so brave, such expansive football in that first quarter and first half. Taking opportunities through the middle and just moving the ball quick handballs, quick kicks, and really good skilled football. And that's the thing, is like you got to marry up your quick movement with your skills. But Hawthorn comes to play us and kicks 6 goals, 2 to 1-1 in that first quarter, and completely turns the tables on what we'd done the first week, and we just came out sluggish. But we did get the win in the end against Hawthorn in that game, 12 goals, 7. That Hawthorn kicked to our 11 goals, 14, 80. So a 1 point win, 80 to 79 in that game, which was obviously the famous DBJ, ole, ole, ole. Kicks a goal with, it was 8 seconds to go. Actually, I did time it when I was talking about it on the review at the time. Then a few seconds ticked off and it ended up with 3 seconds to go, I think, at the centre bounce stoppage. But a famous win that shouldn't have needed to be. But it was, you take them, you take those ones. Rioli kicked 3 again. He was having a real good run there up until he got injured. I think the next week here against when we get to Kangaroos in a moment. But Rioli with 3. Houston had 3 really good ones in this game as well. HORNE-FRANCIS was one of our best on the day, along with Butters. And again, as I said, Houston, Jace Burgoyne was continuing to really just make his case for the fact that he should never be dropped if he's fit. In another good performance for him as well. And then we went down to Tassie the next week to play North Melbourne down there and got our first win, a good win since incredible to say this, but our first dominant win since we played Essendon in that first month of games we talked about, with a 59-point win, 16 goals 11 to 7 goals 6. A game that, again, started a little bit, up and down that first half. Kangaroos threw pretty much everything they had at us. We were up by 20 points, I think, at halftime. Ended up running out 59-point winners, in particular, highlighted by a 6-goal to 1 third quarter that really opened the game up. And then we just managed the game out and still ended up winning the last quarter by a goal. To win by 59 points, Todd Marshall highlight with 5 goals in that one. Ollie Wines. Travis Spoke had a really good game in that one as well, kind of proving that he does have a role to play down the stretch of this season, I think. His fitness levels seem to be building, actually, this season, I think, particularly his last month. He's really been looking good. So, yeah, and then obviously, don't need to say too much because we just reviewed it, but we lost 16 goals 11 107 to 10 goals 11 71 to Carlton to round out the last month of the season. Makes an interesting one to grade because we won three games on the trot after losing the showdown, but then the Carlton game makes it a really interesting one because the way we fell away in that last quarter adds a little bit of a caveat to what was looking like a really solid month there. Yeah, how are you feeling about it?
That month in particular, this is really licorice all sorts this month period.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Rogues Gallery right in front of me. The Geelong win, again, our second real tangent-laden review. Just cock a hoop about the turnaround from the showdown when everyone was doomsdaying and us at the time. We compartmentalized that month, including the Collingwood and St Kilda games at the time, and we wanted to be 3-1, did we? Or was it including Hawthorn going from St? Yeah, that's actually what it was. Yeah, going 3-1, and after losing the showdown, we're like, oh well, we're going to have to settle for 2-2.
Yeah,
and then to beat Geelong in Geelong, just a famous win because of how long it had been and just the.
And Geelong are still a good team. They were still a good team,
Yeah. And the Geelong game and then it being mirrored, absolutely, apart from the ending. It just one team jumping out of the blocks and the other team pegging it back. It was in a game of two halves, like you said in the review of the Hawthorn game. It was a game of 3 quarters and 1 quarter.
Mm-hmm.
One of our equal highest comeback victories against Hawthorn, which was just an interesting one to review. I remember because it was so frustrating in large portions, but then to miraculously win, like who doesn't love that?
Mm-hmm.
When it's all said and done, got the job done against North. So it's in isolation that month, probably what we would have expected. Probably would have expected to drop the game against Geelong and beat Carlton, being a home game.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, we got what we probably would have expected. It's just, the Carlton game, like we said in our review, it leaves a sour taste coming into the bye because now we've got, after the game, we had 17 days to stew on it and we're still, got the majority of that time still to go.
Yeah.
But I think it's a solid B+. Month of football, like I said, we got what we expected. It's just the loss last up probably, it doesn't do us any favors and knocks it down from probably being an A. Because 3-1 being the expectation, if that's the expectation, then that's probably an A, right?
Yeah.
But it's just the way that we, probably played for large portions of the Hawthorn game and how we lost against Carlton, which knocks it down for mine.
Yeah, no, I was going with a solid B for similar reasons mentioned for that month. There's the concerns that come out of a performance like, for half, 3/4 of that Hawthorn game and then obviously the Carlton game as well. Just those familiar concerns. But then, the Geelong win through a spanner in the works there. But the problem is we want to get the surprise wins and take advantage of them. if you're expecting to go 3-1 by losing to Geelong, then you want to go 4-0 because you beat them. So, and then to lose in such disappointing fashion to Carlton to end the first half of the season, just a solid B for that month. So where does that leave you before we get into just looking at? I guess we can just spend 5 minutes just talking about how we feel about the side and then give a grade to the season. But how do you feel putting it you're looking back on it now, like a letter grade for and how we're going and how you're feeling about us through the first 12 weeks as a whole now?
Yeah. I've got it at a B, half season grade. Could make the argument for B plus, considering where we still are on the ladder. But the buys have already started. So I've got us at a B for mine. If you told me at the buy we'd be in the top 4, I probably would have taken it. No, it's not probably. I would have absolutely taken it. But just some of the losses and how we've lost them, and then like we've said, even in 1 or 2 of our wins, suggests that we've still got enough room for improvement that we absolutely need to make some adjustments or really drill down on particular parts of our game. So that's where I land with the B.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I've gone a B minus a little bit.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So top 4 plus, that's a plus point. But I think we've been aided by some other teams being similarly, which you have to take that as a plus point. That's just the nature of the AFL as a whole. It's a very even competition this year. That's not our fault. It's the fact is we've put ourselves in a position at 8 and 4 to be in the top 4. That's a good thing. But I do have legitimate concerns about some of our losses have been, if we're 8 and 4 and we've lost those 4 games by, just some close games. Yeah, you'd be happy about the fact that we're on a run of 3 showdown losses in a row and none of them we've really fired a true shot in. You could argue last year in the first one, that was the closest we'd come because we did have ourselves in front in the last quarter at one point. So, but yeah, that's a concern to me. Collingwood at the MCG again just got blown out of the water when they turned their run on. Carlton turned their run on for 1 quarter and blew us out of the water in that 1 quarter. Hawthorn almost were very close to having us. They just left the door just ajar and we had a miraculous run through, which you have to give plaudits to as well. So yeah, it was a very hard one for me to grade. A shout out to Dave Lloyd on Twitter. He replied and I put the shout out to, and he said his mark is a B plus on the year. And yeah, it's
Thanks,
I'm somewhere in there. And thank you again for coming on last week as well. Look forward to chatting at some point again when we get you on. But I am being very critical, and I am letting history be a part of that. But it has to be a part of it when we're talking about this team, because the Ken Hinkley thing is a part of it. And we on this podcast, and you and I both, and our mentality is to be constructively critical and not get into the weeds of the immaturity that happens on the social media. And we get them.
For sure.
I get the emotions that come with that immaturity. We just try to stay away from that because this is a human being that has had a lot of good results for us. And there is plus points to this season as well. But when you counter add in that history, because I thought we got to a point of being a little bit past some of there was a point last year where we did get to our game plan looked like it had improved, and I've seen some little bits of regression again, which could be a part of the evolution and the adding in of, and we're still trying to figure out Rosie and Butters as they increase their midfield time. Obviously, Jason Horne-Francis, when did he got traded in at the end of 2020? Jason Horne-Francis wasn't even meant to be in, he just became available and he's come in. So there's all these evolutions in our game over the last 18 months that are happening. Obviously, Charlie Dixon probably has fallen away a little bit. They took a gamble probably signing him on, having him on for this year. And so there is some caveats there, but that is a part of the whole where because we do want to be contending for a premiership this year. And
absolutely.
And so all these things, while you say yeah, these are things that are caveats to why we're performing badly. They're also things that need to be considered because they were considered in our list building for this season. And so that's why I had to be. I was thinking a solid B, but then I started thinking about the critical points I have for the year. And I just have to go to B minus. Just to be, I want to be. I'm just trying to be a bit harder on them because I do have belief in this squad and what they can do. So while I think I'm very happy with the fact that if we had dropped out of the top 4 by the end of this last round, I might have gone C plus. Like that's the thing is like we've put ourselves in a position in the top 4. A little bit of luck went our way with the results of the weekend, but that's also, again, as I said, that's the nature of the AFL. You get, it's a very even competition this year, and we've put ourselves in the upper echelon of that pack, which is a good thing.
That inconsistency,
yeah. But then you're also talking about being one of the better inconsistent sides, which you'd rather be a little bit above that. So exactly. B minus is where I'm at. It's a tough one, but it's when you're trying to put an arbitrary grade on something, you've got to go with it. And and again, as we said, the roller coaster results where we've had ones we should have won easily that we've either lost or won in incredible fashion, like the Hawthorn one, and then we've had the ones that we expected to lose that we've gone on and won. And then again, the Essendon result in that first month looked, Essendon were getting beaten from pillar to post in the wake of that game about where their game plan's at. They've hardly missed a beat since, and they're sitting above us in second. So then we've got to, do you look back on that result and go, I mean, I think they were missing, Sam Durham was missing it. Yeah, was missing in that game.
Peter Wright.
Yes, that was the start of his suspension, maybe the second week. So they were missing some pieces, but then, we could say the same thing against Carlton too. So, because we were missing.
Have Power Pepper.
Yes. Yeah. So, injuries are hitting a fair few teams this year. So you just got to take the results on their merit a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think, there's a Twitter user, his name's Heath. He put up a mid-season ladder of games won and lost against current top 8 teams. And his point was that people on the negative side like to change the goalposts to suit their narrative whenever they feel like it. But looking at it right now, after 12 rounds of football, we have one of the better records against the top 8 as it currently stands. So
was it only two teams that have a positive record, and we're one of them?
Sydney and Port Adelaide. As the 8 currently stands, that will obviously be judged in its entirety come the end of the season, but it just kind of goes hand in hand with how the first half of the season has played out AFL wide, not just Port Adelaide. The Freo game, looking back, does that hold more weight? How Hawthorn's run has been in the last 5 to 6 weeks,
they're now 5 and
more weight?
They're now 5-2 over the last 7 weeks, I think.
I think so. Yeah, something like that. I think they're 4-1 over the last 5, and our loss being the only the one. I think everyone has a bitter taste in their mouth to some extent. But I would imagine Melbourne fans, Giants fans would, even Geelong fans being in third, would probably have a bit of a bitter taste in their mouth. Freo and Gold Coast probably, cheering a little bit. But when you look at us, Port Adelaide, I think everyone's expecting us to just, be the same predictable Port Adelaide for the rest of the season. But I don't want to dwell on that. I hope for change, and I hope that everyone is proven wrong, even maybe us in our predictions. And I guess we've just looked on the first 3-4 week blocks, and looking ahead to our next 4-week block, got Giants away, Brisbane at home, St Kilda away, and Western Bulldogs at home. So it's another springboard that could solidify our spot in the 4 that we currently hold. When we return to football, I looked at the fixture before, and I think, again, we're fortunate in the way that if I can just bring up the fixture. So you've got Hawthorn playing Giants, which at this point in time, it's in Tasmania. Hawthorn could easily pip Giants at the post there, which would help us. St Kilda plays Gold Coast. Gold Coast are there and thereabouts. That's in Melbourne. Sydney play Geelong. So again, when we return to football, that could affect our potential rise. And Essendon play Carlton, which for the same reasons could work in our favour. Collingwood play Melbourne. So again, while we're off duty, there's some games that can equally go in our favour if they go the right way, and some which may cancel each other out in regards to the latter. So when we return to football, we've got a good opportunity to come back refreshed and hopefully with a renewed sense of confidence if we address some of the glaringly obvious deficiencies in our game. And again, the naysayers will say law of averages, we're not going to fix them, we're just going to stick fat. But if what looks like happening with Charlie will happen and he's not right, that may actually force the change needed. And again, that's just one part of our game. But they may force change in one aspect of our game that's needed to change our profile and positively affect our foray forward towards the finals.
No, that's probably the big watch for going into the second half of the year. And I think like when we do a preview for GWS next week, maybe we'll just have a brief 15-minute interlude where we'll just look at the next couple of months of footy and the fixtures upcoming and just look at it in general, but as well as preview that.
I've got some points on some things that I think I want to see and maybe some question marks if you want to go into that. I don't know if you have anything similar for the last.
I'm more looking at it just depends what time you've got because we'll update the player of the year at the end here as well. But if you've got a couple of minutes that you want to give us, I'm all ears.
So definitely have a little bit of time and don't need to delve too far into these things. And look, I'm going to be honest, like I'm cheating a little bit because I agree with a couple of points that David King has made in regards to our profile or tactical choices and something that Kane Corn said in relation to our defensive line coming off the back of the Carlton loss. So, it's probably nothing that anyone hasn't heard before. It's just whether you want to buy into it. But so just sticking with a couple of David King's points, back to the forward line, I actually agree with him in regards to when Rosie returns. I think Rosie and in particular HORNE-FRANCIS rotating forward could be a weapon. I actually agree with that. I mean, we only have to go back to Rosie's debut year, when he should have arguably won the Rising Star off the back of playing forward in a pretty hard position to play, particularly in your debut season. He can be quite damaging. And it's not to say that he doesn't, all of a sudden he's not a midfielder anymore. That's not what David King was saying. And it's not what I'm saying right now. It's just that using that magnet to best effect, particularly now that
it's a modern game a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they need to rest somewhere. And with rotations capped and Sam Powell-Pepper being unavailable for the rest of the year, I think something that goes unnoticed when Rosie is at full flight is some of the tackling pressure that he does apply in the middle. There's no reason to say why our captain, while resting forward, can't apply the same level of forward pressure. And we all know what JHF can do forward. That's become glaringly obvious in the last month to 6 to 8 weeks.
JHF has that Dustin Martin presence up forward, like muscle and a
bit of Petrarca as well in that same vein. Can absolutely impact and change a game when rotating forward. The other point that David King made, particularly off the back of the Carlton loss, was just our defensive structure as a whole and protecting our tall forwards. We've mentioned several times throughout the year and even in our preseason about how easily we are to score against on transition. And that is obviously due to how aggressive we're pushing forward. So I think it's in our best interest to set a less aggressive defensive press. Although we've made it our bread and butter, it's what our personality is as a football team. And we were one of the teams that pioneered it going back to 2018, 2019. You have to know when something is seriously hurting you, particularly when you're trying to blood defenders in the team, new defenders, new tall defenders. That's one aspect of it. And the other thing that Kane Corn said was that our small to medium defenders really need to assist in our defensive line. And unfortunately, I think Burton's acting to the detriment of that at the moment. And Bergman's getting lost on the wing. Although his stats look okay against Carlton, I think it's pretty surface level. And I don't think that we're getting the returns positively at like the net positive from Bergman being on the wing. So whether you just simply swap that magnet, because
his defensive marking that he can provide down in the back line that we've seen in last year especially was big in that run of wins we had.
Yeah. And I've mentioned it before in some of our reflections on games is what he's shown over the last 18 to 24 months is he's too valuable an intercepting half-backer to move. Like, I know he wants to play on the wing, but unfortunately, his net positive is in the back line, assisting our taller defenders. He's got a good kick. He's got a fantastic intercept mark, contested mark overall. We need a bit more. To go back on Burton, they played a highlights package of his career prior to the game at Adelaide Oval on Thursday, and something that just came across to me was how explosive and fast he was earlier, and it seemingly eluded him. He doesn't seem as fast. He doesn't seem as explosive. Excuse me. And all he's really there to do is meters gained and maybe get a goal playing high. And that's not necessarily what we need or want him to do. And if it is a factor of like, because he's had a few leg injuries across his career, if that is a factor similar to Charlie Dixon, if that's catching up with him now, if he's got the running capacity to play on a wing, you don't necessarily need explosive speed, in my opinion. You just need to be able to assist the midfield, assist forward and defense. You need the tank. You need that running capacity to play out a full game. So, because he's at risk of getting dropped. Like, if they want Burton to play, then maybe that's just a simple magnet switch that they can try coming into the back half of the season, because I believe that Bergman is in his best position when he's playing back, and I've said that before. And that would go along with Kane Corn's point of our small to medium defenders assisting our tall defenders.
Yeah, because Bergman's got some incredible reach and wing. Like there was some of those games. I'm trying to think if it was Sydney last year. There was a few games where he'd just pop up and kind of like Michael Wilson back in 2004, just taking marks when the pressure's on. And that's and like you said, like the stats on the weekend against Carlton weren't terrible for Bergman, but I just don't remember noticing it. It was eye test stuff. And that's kind of what has been missing from Bergman's game this year is you just don't notice him as much. And that's what you want from a player like him.
Yeah.
You're not noticing him taking as many marks or intercept marks or whatever. And it's just, he's getting lost in the game. Even if he's getting his stats okay, he's just not making a big impact, which is what we want to see from him. So, those are great points to bring up because that's really, we're ranked 16th in team to opponent rebound 50s per game difference. Like we're just getting smashed in the transition game, and our own transition game isn't matching up at all, which is what with the ball users we have back there, and like to your point with the likes of Ryan Burton and all those guys, and then Bergman down the wing or whatever, just to touch on the ones you were talking about, we should be better in that aspect of the game, and we're not, and then we're getting smash going the other way. So that means that does mean it necessitates some magnet moving to try to, because it's not whatever your idea is of what you want to do, it's not working right now.
And something
there's
does need to change.
Yeah,
that's glaringly obvious.
Yeah, and there's no signs that any of these guys are going to get any better in their roles currently in this year of 2024. It's just, it doesn't look like it's going to. So you do need to, some things need to flip. And the likes of Dan Houston, Kane Farrell, they're doing their job okay. So those ones are not the ones that maybe they can assist a little bit more, but it is the likes of Bergman, Burton, those ones that are really getting
Lockie Jones, like you said.
Lockie Jones, because even a guy like Josh Sin came in and as raw as he is, was a immediate plus point in comparison to the far more seasoned veterans that should know better and should be, when Josh Sin is, as raw as he was, not perfect, but showing something.
Yeah.
In comparison to the likes of Ryan Burton, who was finished second in the Rising Star and is still only 26, 27 now, I think.
Yeah.
There is a problem there that needs to be solved by, and as you just brought up that other guys have talked about as well, it's some creative magnet switching can.
It's not wholesale changes. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and that's what David King was saying again. Sometimes we hate some of the opinions that some of the knee-jerk reactions, but
the duality
he was saying,
duality of King.
It's like he was saying to Kane Corns, who wanted to put words in his mouth before he got them out. Was like, it's not, we're not bagging the tall defenders, and we're not saying like they've been poor recruits or anything like that. It's just helping them out with a tactical shift. Because if we want to get anything out of this season, because we know, like everyone knows, we'll probably win enough games to make it to the finals at least, if not top 4. We all know that. But if we want to get something out of it, there's some seemingly simple things that we can do, I believe, that can positively affect the next half of our season. We need to we need to help our tall defenders out by shifting those magnets, or maybe shifting our forward press a little bit further back. And then on transition forward, we need to be a bit more direct, in my opinion. And this is all easy to say, but we need to let our forwards do their work, and we need to help them do their work by playing a game style that suits their strengths. Like if we treat Todd Marshall like we do with Charlie Dixon, he's never going to kick a goal. Like we can't treat him the same. He's not the same player. And Ken's even said that. So like I said, we need to change if we want something. If we want to get something out of this season, we can't just play the same way we are and get to finals and hope that it's just going to miraculously win us 3 or 4 games of football.
And then some of those
finals football.
And just to finish off before we get into, I'll get to the how the leaderboard's looking. But some of those magnet switches might help some of those. We're talking about the individuals not playing well enough or looking like passengers. It might actually solidify, like their games might improve with a little bit of that change as well, because it just feels like some of them are a little bit lost in their roles, even if that's what they want. So, we're in a nice position at this point of the season. But there's plenty of things that can change to hopefully lead us to a point of at least some positivity going into finals, as that's looking like where we're going. All right, I'm just going to run through to finish off the top 10 leaderboard of the Player of the Year votes as they're sitting so far. And I'll start from the bottom of the top 10, which is, it is like a lot of small votes for the first few, and then it jumps up because there's a lot of guys that feature pretty regularly, which is kind of how it is going to go. So George
goes in any Player of the Year award. Really.
Yeah. And Georgiades popped himself into the bottom of the top 10 today with two 4-place votes. So he's on him. So he's on 8, and that matches up with Todd Marshall, who got 4 votes from myself and Dave Lloyd last week as well. Big Ivan Soldo still sitting in 8th in the Player of the Year votes with his starts of the year with 10 votes. One that I'm really pleased to see in 7th is Jace Burgoyne on 20. He's just picking up votes. I actually think there was one week we might have given him best on, but he just picks up 1s and 2s and stuff like that and pops up in there.
It was the St Kilda game.
Yes, yeah, that might have been the one.
We would have given him best on.
Yeah. But beyond that, just considering he was a sub for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, or wasn't even in the side for the first couple of weeks, like he's to be in 7th at this point of the season is really good. Willem Drew's sitting there in 6th on 25 votes. Hasn't featured much in the last month, but he's, as you mentioned today, in our review of the Carlton game, which was recorded today, he was honourable mention there, and he's always floating around there. He's just sometimes he gets lost in the mix a little bit, but we do love him. Connor Rozee sitting in 5th on 34 votes, which he's been sitting on for probably the last month and a half. He's ever since really the week.
Desperately need him back.
Yes, we do, because him sitting on 34 votes with not having really registered a vote for the last 6 weeks speaks to the fact that he was that important for the first 5 weeks of the season. So in 4th, Dan Houston on 40 votes. Again, one of those ones that picks up 2s and 3s every week and has himself in a pretty good spot on the leaderboard. Ollie Wines has the bronze medal at the moment with 45 votes, which is an incredible result for a player that we weren't sure where he was going to fit in this side this year.
Fucking
but
love that.
Yeah, he's in 3rd on 45 votes, and we get to the top 2, which is interesting. And in 2nd is who Dave Lloyd tweeted that he has as his player of the year, but Jason Horne-Francis is sitting on 2nd on 60 votes. But he's closed the gap quite significantly on Zach Butters, who was on 67. But just a couple of weeks ago, Butters was on 63 and JHF was on 40. But JHF has taken player of the week the last 2 weeks from both voters.
Wet sail.
Yeah, and he's come, and so he's got it within 7 votes. And with the likes of, if Rosie comes back, Ollie keeps playing well, Horne-Francis keeps playing well, Buzz keeps playing well, that's going to keep closing up a little bit, I think. So it's the benefit. It's a real interesting leaderboard at the moment. So Butters leads our player of the year voting at the halfway point with 67 votes, but Horne-Francis right behind on 60. And Ollie's closed the gap pretty well after the first month of the season. I'm not sure Ollie got too many, but he's really been picking up.
I don't think he did.
He's been picking up a lot the last 6 to 8 weeks. Even a few weeks ago, I think when I tallied it up, he was sitting in 5th or 6th possibly. But he's just keeps nabbing votes and getting up there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's probably familiar faces at the top and who we probably expected. But to be honest, if you told me Ollie Wines would be top 3 at a halfway point at the start of the year, I would have been surprised. So that's a real plus point to him. He's probably been one of my favourite surprises of the season alongside Jace Burgoyne. So
just happy to see him recapture form that we all knew was sitting dormant.
Yeah. It's amazing what a good preseason can do for you, isn't it? It's
for sure. Yeah, people in the industry always say it. I think us punters always undervalue it because we're not there to live it.
Yeah,
we don't live it.
It's funny. There's a guy in baseball, Blake Snell, who's a 2-time Cy Young winner, which is the best pitcher in baseball award. He held out for a long time. He's got an agent. There's an agent in American sports that is quite contentious, who held a lot of his players out for a long time looking for contracts at the start of this year. And so Blake Snell didn't get a spring training, which is preseason, and didn't play a lick of baseball pitching really until the season came. And he started the season terribly as a former player of the year in his position. And he said at one point, I think only a couple of weeks ago, it came up in Sports Center, he's just like, spring training is important. I feel like he was kind of giving a little nudge to his manager that maybe just don't fucking do that to me again.
They know. They all know.
It goes across sports, all sports. Your lead into the season is incredibly important to get those reps and that confidence that you can do the job when it comes to the business part of the season. So anyway, awesome to kind of just run over the season as it's been, because it kind of it's a fun way to look at what we've been through so far. And yes, it's not all been positive, but there's some reasons to look forward to the rest of the season, but also some reasons to be critical and with a critical eye forward to see if the club can do what we want them to do going forward. Anyway, I know you. I appreciate your time again, as always. We've smashed in a couple of episodes tonight to release this week, as we do not have a game coming up this week. So To everyone out there listening, thank you for listening as always, and enjoy your bye week. As much as we love Port Footy, the bye week does give you a little bit of a break, especially.
Yeah, go get away. Yeah, meditate. Yeah, look after yourself. Pamper yourself.
Yeah,
and we'll come back. Yeah, ripping as ever.
Yeah, and look out for we will be launching it soon. We do have a Patreon in the works for some special episodes. Jamie and I are prepping in the background for some retrospective looks back at our 2004 season, as it is the 20th anniversary coming up of our 20th anniversary of our first AFL premiership, which is always a good thing to look back on, as we hope to look forward to adding another one, hopefully, this year or the next, or whenever it comes, hopefully soon. There's a few things to look forward to. But as always, we appreciate you listening, and Khan the pair. At least we can't lose the bye week, apart from
Khan the bye.
Although that famous YouTube video, what was that? Was that back 2013?
It's exchanged hands a few times now. Yeah, the Crows and West Coast and North Melbourne have all lost to the bye since.
It's been a while since we've had to, so it's nice. Anyway, Khan the pair. We're not going to lose the bye week. Enjoy it. Go see a movie. Meditate. Go take a walk. Whatever it may be. As I recommended to Jamie, and as I'll tell everyone on this podcast, go watch Hell or High Water. That's a great movie. That's a great way to spend your bye week. All right, Khan the pair.
Khan the pair.